So listen to this. In 2016, Jack Grealish made history. At 20 years old, he finished the Premier League season with 16 appearances and 16 defeats. Not a single win all season, not even a draw, and it wasn't even close. The second worst ever was Sean Thornton with 11 defeats in 11 games. But the difference was that Sean had never played a Premier League game before that and would never play one again. Grealish, however, would go on to become the most expensive English player of all time. And the thing is, that wasn't even a shock. This guy had been playing Premier League football since the age of 16. If you think any drama, any downfall could ever truly stop this guy, you don't really know him. This isn't your average modern player who'll start underperforming if his glucose levels spike after having a Big Mac. This guy arrived in a time machine straight from the 90s. He has more in common with Maradona and Gascoigne than with any of these new kids. Look, Jack is Aston Villa true and true. His great-great-grandfather had literally won the FA Cup playing for them in 1905. At age 6, Jack was already playing for them, and by 15, he had their academy director saying that he's an old-fashioned player. He's not pacey by any stretch, but he just drops his shoulder and ghosts past people. He has the gift. He can be as good as he wants to be. That's what you call foreshadowing. Regardless, this guy was so good, even the first team manager was fiending for him, claiming that it was like watching Michael Laudrup. I just wanted him to get the ball over and over again. So much so that once he heard that Rio Ferdinand had invited him out to his restaurant, they actually offered him a contract and called him up to a Premier League match at 16, even if only to the bench. And meanwhile, at youth level, Villa set out to play the Next Gen series, pretty much the youth league before they actually gave it that name. And among Liverpool, Barcelona, Dortmund, Juve, Inter, every major academy in Europe, Grealish scored 1 minute into extra time to beat Sporting, putting them in the final, and then winning a penalty to hand them the trophy. Yet all those top clubs so shook, the organization handed the Player of the Tournament award to some future Chelsea flop as a consolation prize, though even the competition's top scorer admitted that he was miles ahead of anyone else. And yet, believe it or not, the next season, that manager who was obsessed with him got sacked and replaced with Paul Lambert, so after a little falling out, he sent Grealish out on loan to Notts County, who finished 20th in the third tier. Still, out in the depths of the English football pyramid, he still managed to get the cameras on him. By December, he was going past the whole team, scoring the goal of the month and getting booked for running into the crowd to hug his dad, which, by the way, is utter woke nonsense. Faster than anyone could expect, the 18-year-old had become their star player, with the papers describing him as having an almost supernatural ability to beat his man. And before that season ended, Paul Lambert was already swallowing his pride, bringing him back and giving him his Premier League debut. After all, they were once again being forced to lock him down before someone else would. Internationally, there was an all-out tug-of-war with England, determined to convince him to switch his allegiance, even though he had played for Ireland since he was 14. And at club level, Chelsea was coming in guns blazing, knowing his contract would be over at the end of the season. On his 19th birthday, he had every Villa fan sweating bullets as he joked on Twitter that Villa better get him a cake, in reference to how Yaya Touré had burned bridges with City after they forgot to wish him happy birthday. But regardless, he did renew, and right on that first real season, he stole the show, coming into that FA Cup quarter-finals against rivals West Bromwich and assisting a goal before getting sent off for diving, all in just 16 minutes, forcing his way into the starting 11 for the semi-finals against Liverpool, which, let's get serious for a second, was a game that meant a lot more to Grealish than you may imagine, since it was while attending an FA Cup semi-final years earlier that his dad got the news that Jack's younger brother had passed away. So that day, he created both goals as Villa stunned Liverpool to make it to their first FA Cup final since the start of the century, making his family proud on the most dreadful of days. However, in typical Grealish fashion, that high was quickly followed by a new low. To finish that season, he was caught consuming nitrous oxide, or hippie crack as those tabloids love to call it, and though new manager Tim Sherwood claimed his talk with the player had been enough to solve the problem, for a while getting everyone to forget the controversy, as Jack finally made the move to the England under-20s, putting down a great performance to get them their first Toulon tournament title since 1994. Well, a couple months months later, he was being spotted in a nightclub celebrating with champagne as his friends passed around nitrous oxide, the same night that Villa got battered 4-0 by Everton, collapsing further down the bottom of the table. And this time, he did get punished, being sent back into the under-21s for a few months. So, if you haven't caught up to that just yet, that was the season he got that record. 16 Premier League matches, all defeats, and for the first time in their history, as many fans thought their prodigy would come to save them, Villa was relegated. However, the next season was even more depressing for those fans. Jack started the year by being caught partying in his hotel room at 8 AM, with the staff being forced to call in police to bring it all to a stop. The following month, he was being suspended for 3 games thanks to a stomp on Connor Cody, and by the end, not only weren't they getting promoted back, they were at the bottom half of the table as Jack didn't get a single minute of playing time at the under-21 Euros, leading many to question if, at this rate, he'd ever make it to the first team. And as it looked like something would have to shake up his entire world to get him back on track, he almost got more than he bargained for. In a preseason friendly, Grealish went to challenge a lost ball, collided with Tom cleverly and fell to the ground. It didn't seem like much. Grealish himself was confused as to why the pain felt so different, but eventually he had to be carried to the hospital and, unbelievably, he was soon being prepped for surgery, being told he could die. His words, not mine. In a freak accident, Grealish took a hit to the kidney and it split in 2 places, pouring with blood internally for about 5 hours. Initially thinking he'd be back on the pitch in a week or so, Grealish ended up being out for 3 months, doing nothing but thinking, and as he said it himself, it wasn't until those relegation years that I felt a greater sense of purpose. And so, with Villa in 7th, 22 games in, just as he fully recovered, he somehow managed to bring them up to 4th into the promotion playoffs, and there, he assisted the semi-finals only goal, being carried on the shoulders of their fans as they celebrated a place in the final, only to lose to Fulham. In his 7th season at the club, then 23 years old, Grealish outright rejected Tottenham with a single goal of restoring Villa to their former greatness. And though following a rocky takeover, that year started off with only 2 wins in 13 matches and a cabbage being thrown at Steve Bruce's head shortly before his sacking, then Grealish hit 2 goals and 3 assists to lead him on 6 unbeaten games before injuring his shin and getting sidelined for 3 months. 3 months that, ironically, saw them yet again going 13 matches with only 2 wins before Grealish returned and new manager Dean Smith looked back at that short period of good form and had the genius idea of, against all logic, making him the new team captain. In his own words, "With the armband on, I felt unstoppable." When Villa's season seemed long gone, all the way down at 14th with only 10 matches left, Grealish took over with 4 goals and 2 assists that still don't do justice to the work he put down, as he led them to 10 consecutive wins, straight into another 4th place finish in the promotion playoffs. In the first game of that streak, he hit the goal of the season against Derby. The next game, he went up against rivals Birmingham, got punched in the back of the head by a pitch invader, only to still end up scoring the game's only goal, running it back in the playoff semi-finals, assisting the goal that put them in the final again, where, against all odds, they beat Derby and secured their place back at the top level. When asked about Grealish, Smith looked around in amazement and said, "Boy, that kid has matured." Well, at least more than you could have expected from him. The next year was a bit of a mess. Up till the end of February, Grealish hit 9 goals and 8 assists, being by far the most productive player in the team, repeatedly saving them from dropping below the relegation line and, incredibly, leading them to the final of the League Cup. But then, just as they lost out on that trophy to United, the pandemic hit. And he was not only caught violating the lockdown rules, but got his license seized for reckless driving, going 12 matches without a goal or assist once football restarted, all the way down to the last match day when, with Villa desperately at the edge of another relegation, he rifled it in 6 minutes from the end, ultimately securing the 1 point that saved them as Watford lost 3-2 to Arsenal and went down in their place. Meaning that, among this chaos, Grealish still got named as Villa's player of the season, finishing the year by breaking the record for most fouls won by any Premier League player in history, and drawing enough attention to himself that after Prince William himself sent a letter to Southgate demanding his call-up, he finally got it, giving him the confidence boost that sent him into his best ever season. Now, he was putting on genuinely world-class numbers, scoring and assisting at a rate only outdone by Son and Kane. Just 4 games into the season, he was putting down what may be the greatest performance of his career, beating Liverpool 7-2, their heaviest defeat in 57 years, assisting the opener, the second, the fifth, and then scoring the 6th and 7th himself. 22 games in, he had Villa 3 points off of the European spots, as Emi Martinez called him, the right-footed Messi. Only for him to then injure his shin again and be sidelined for pretty much all that was left of the season, but still getting called up to the Euros, where he'd assist the winner against Czechia in his first start, warranting his introduction as 21 minutes remained in a goalless last 16 match against Germany, contributing directly to both goals, setting England on their way towards the final, sparking up controversy as Southgate then refused to bring him in until well into extra time, as they settled for second place. Though it would all still be enough that Guardiola himself finally decided to make him the 7th most expensive player in football history and hand him Agüero's number 10. A few goals over that first month at City almost made it seem like a success, but by December, as it all started to run dry, he got caught leaving a nightclub with Phil Foden on a Tuesday night, and both quickly got dropped for the next game. But while Foden quickly made it back into the team, Grealish started getting fewer and fewer minutes until suddenly he was at their league title celebration, admitting to the reporters that he was questioning himself, saying, "They paid £100 million for me, but what have I actually contributed?" Even though Guardiola and his teammates kept defending him, insisting that he is misunderstood, you can't judge him on goals and assists, which was an especially good point in that case, as he was the holder of one of the most freakish stats I've seen in a while. That season, Grealish ranked 5th in the league behind only De Bruyne, Alexander-Arnold, Salah and Olise for expected assists, but ranked 69th for actual assists, lower than his own centre-back Ruben Dias. It's one thing to create high-quality chances for a mid-table team and watch your mediocre teammates fail to convert them, but to play for the best team in Europe and watch your teammates convert the chances created by everyone else but fail to convert yours, that's just a statistical oddity. So really, he was bound to start performing, and indeed, despite making it to November without getting another assist, he left for the World Cup, came back and turned his luck around. On his first start, with City in second place trailing behind Arsenal, he got 2 assists to secure their win over Leeds. Then, a week later, another to beat Chelsea 1-0. The next match, a goal in the Manchester derby, and just like that, he became a regular starter and almost instantly ruined Arsenal's season, assisting the winner in the FA Cup to knock them out and coming back a couple weeks later to score himself, as City beat them in the league and snatched their place at the top of the table. Yet, somehow, it'd get even better. Immediately after, making it 9 goal contributions in 9 consecutive starts, damn near matching the previous season's numbers in the space of 2 months, assisting 2 in the last 16 against Leipzig, as Hargreaves claimed that the moment he makes his mind up like this, it's pretty much impossible to play against. Something that would become pretty clear for Liverpool as he came back to terrorize them again. 26 minutes in, putting in an heroic sprint as Salah and Diogo Jota were about to gang up on Ederson, only to 1 minute later be on the other side of the pitch assisting the equalizer, eventually even playing a 1-2 with De Bruyne to make it 4-1 on the comeback and leave the pitch to a standing ovation. By the time he reached the UCL semi-finals against Real Madrid, he was breaking the English record for most chances created in a Champions League campaign, all while still having time to record a video for a fan in intensive care before he even left the Bernabeu. And if a couple weeks later, as they won the FA Cup and got within a single game of a treble, he was already claiming that this is the stuff you dream of as a kid. Once they beat Inter to take the Champions League as well, as the pundits named him as one of the stars of Man City's campaign, well, if he had worked hard, then he partied harder. At 8 AM the next day, he still hadn't taken off his kit. By the time he got to the plane, he was stumbling all over the place with rumors that the airport staff even offered to get him a wheelchair, eventually admitting he went 72 hours without sleep during the celebrations, and though afterwards he insisted he was the fittest he's ever been, as the papers claimed it was time for him to take over the national team. Little did they know, he'd only play 7 more games for England. Right at the start of the next season, he went out with a dead leg, which shouldn't be too much of an issue, but to him, it was enough to stay sidelined for over a month, as he claimed that the doctor told me a bad hematoma would be like 6 centimeters, mine was 20, the worst he'd ever seen by a mile. And I don't mean to be an instigator, but research the causes of a dead leg, and regular alcohol use is high up the list. And by the second half of the season, once he got injured for another 41 days, even Guardiola admitted that the kind of injuries he was having could only happen when a player is not fit at all. And so, by the end of the season, he was left absolutely heartbroken as he was left out of the Euros, and as you know, without anyone to boost his confidence levels around him, Grealish collapsed again, going 365 days without scoring a goal, leading Guardiola to admit defeat, claiming that, "Do I want the Jack that won the treble? Yeah, but I gotta be honest with myself. In other words, it ain't happening." So then, he was left out of the FA Cup final and Club World Cup, pretty much putting an end to his time at the club as rumors of a move to Everton surfaced. I can only hope Jack has one more trick up his sleeve.